Hello, and welcome to Doctor Who 50 years ago, the show that looks back to the episode that aired in 1966 and looks at what's different between then and now. This week, The Highlanders Episode 2, still by elusive Elwyn Jones and godlike Jerry Davis. I am Ben.
I am Luke.
And I'm Nick.
Here we are, here we go, into the news from 1966. On Sunday, December the 18th, How the Grinch Stole Christmas was shown for the first time on CBS in sort of televisual news.
I think it shows Christmas television viewing hasn't changed that much in 50 years, has it?
Also on that day, Epimetheus, another of the moons of Saturn, was captured on photography. Last week we noted the appearance of another of the moons of Saturn, which I think ended in Eos. I can't remember anymore.
Well, I think the significance of this is that we're now finally getting probes far enough out into the solar system to photograph celestial bodies in the outer solar system. So that is an advancement.
On Monday, December the 19th, the United Nations adopted the wordy Treaty on the Principles of Governing the Activities of the States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies. It's also known as the Outer Space Treaty, to be signed in January and enter force in October 1967. Here is a truly international effort to say, hi, you can't colonise this square foot of space for a state or a nation's benefit.
Yeah, and also, I can't really imagine any other decade where the Outer Space Treaty would be signed, you know. How sci-fi is that?
On Tuesday, December the 20th, Harold Wilson withdrew all his previous offers to the Rhodesian government after failures to reach an agreement with them over the last weeks and months, announcing he would agree to independence only after the founding of a black majority government there. Of course, Rhodesia has a white majority government, which had no intention of resigning.
Wouldn't Wilson, as the head of the UK and therefore the colonists, have the power to meddle with the Rhodesian government?
Well,
Doesn't he own the government there?
Well, but then
no,
think about like America, Luke. You know, we owned America in the 1700s, but the government didn't listen to us then. Same sort of idea going on here.
And the time for them to put down a rebellion using military force in a time of international politics and peace looks a little outdated. So they couldn't really, they could denounce them as traitors, but they couldn't go in and invade them. Because on Thursday, December the 22nd, the Prime Minister of Rhodesia, Ian Smith, declared that his country had become an independent republic because of the UN vote sanctions the previous week. Everybody's blockaded it, so essentially by blockading it, it's officially recognised as a republic, rather than as a colony with ideas above its station.
Well, that and also we're not particularly interested in helping them or taking their side, so
no, and
why would they want to be, you know, associated with the UK? But I think becoming a republic, that more aligns them with South Africa, which had already become a republic by this point anyway. So
on Christmas Eve 1966, a 48-hour truce between the US and South Vietnam, North Vietnam and the Viet Cong began. There were some instances of the Viet Cong attacking some Australian troops and things like that, but this truce happened.
Okay. Well, I suppose this shows that I assume the US wants to look like the good guys in orchestrating a truce around Christmas Day. And North Vietnam is happy to take a truce because, well, at this point, they are sort of losing the war. So
It could also be used as propaganda to show that the imperialists are more than happy to cease their relentless but ultimately futile attacks upon them.
Yeah.
And finally, Luna 13, a Soviet Union unmanned spacecraft, landed on the moon. It determined the lunar soil was strong enough to support the weight of a large manned spaceship. So, Merry Christmas, America. The Soviets have realised that you could actually land something on the moon, and are no doubt preparing to get some men up there.
It's interesting that we know that the moon is a rock, and it's just sort of embedded in our consciousnesses. But back then, well, they can't have known what the moon was like at all.
Well.
It's like the moon is made of cheese thing. I mean, no one actually thought it was made of cheese, probably, apart from the flat earthers, who are just these strange people. But
No.
I suppose there must have been quite a lot of doubt as to what the moon is up close.
Well, they would have known it would be made of some kind of rock, but they wouldn't have known if it was, I guess, maybe it could have been like sand, where you couldn't land in it without the craft becoming subsumed. They would have known if it was hard rock or something like that, I suppose.
And that was the news. And now we shall get into the Highlanders episode 2. Oh boy, it is completely unappealing. It's there's nothing redeemable in this episode. It is a chore to watch. It really is.
Yes, there is nothing. I can see why, Luke. You know what? It's a good thing you didn't watch this episode out of an attempt at completionism whenever you last watched episode 1 of The Highlanders before last week. Because, yeah, this was yeah.
I always try and go into something that I know will be bad with the mindset of, okay, I accept that this, and this are going to be bad because I've heard about them. Ignoring them, what can I find? What positivity could I bring out of this? I do sort of see something interesting here. What I see in this episode is they're trying to push the boundaries of the show. They push it so far that it bursts, but if you look at this and you look at the Underwater Menace, which comes in 3 weeks' time, you could say that neither of them feel like Doctor Who or what we imagine Doctor Who should be like, but at the same time, they just got in a new Doctor. So it's good that they were trying completely weird kinds of stories that, well, it should have been obvious they weren't going to work, and they didn't try to make them work. But there is some intent behind them that is admirable. Just, yeah.
Let's see what it tries to do, shall we?
I will say, before we get into it, that I do agree with you. It is rubbish. Just because I managed to come out with something doesn't mean it's any good. I didn't like it.
No. Let's see why you didn't like it then. So, Polly was in fact being menaced by bagpipe music. No, that's the episode title. Instead it's Kirsty, of course. Despite trying to help each other, the two girls fall into the pit. Well done them. This and their subsequent escape is enough time for Finch to pass by. Yeah, I'm going to do that now. He spits insults and acts like a spoilt child, blaming his inferiors for his mistakes like a typical Englishman stranded in Scotland. And, like said typical Englishman, he is lured by womanly noises into the pit.
Was it womanly noises? I thought they were trying to do animal noises.
They were trying to do owls, yeah, but it was the noises from women.
Yeah.
Their plan is the stupidest plan in all of Doctor Who history. And I was astounded by it. For the rest of the scene, I couldn't pay attention. I was staring at... all I could do was write that down.
Wow. It is a mastery in stupefaction.
Yeah, well, this begins the whole sequence of stupid things that happen in this episode. But then you after this get the interesting line by Polly of, "Don't the women of your age do anything but cry?" And this, to me, strikes me as a bit of a weirdly out-of-place feminist statement from her, considering Polly is not exactly the most actiony or, really stands up for women's rights sort of woman or companion in the show in general, is she?
The writers are also continuing the tone of, "Ooh, isn't history a bit rubbish?" As if to tell the story editor and the producer, "Go on then, discontinue the historicals. They're rubbish."
Nick, you said this starts the stupidity of the episode, but I think it also starts the boring of the episode, because last week what we had was a big fight scene. Here we have nothing. We have no exciting incident.
We go to Inverness Jail, a flooded rat hole. The Doctor acts like a moron, shouting random stuff and annoying the guards because he likes hearing the echo. Although I suppose he's being a bit Machiavellian and testing out whether he can annoy the guards long enough for his own ends, I guess. He then assesses Colin, and then assesses the stars and fools Jamie with astrology in terrible wordplay, because that's how you treat historical figures back in time. Sure.
Yeah.
The Doctor discovers that Colin has Bonnie Prince Charlie's standard for some reason. He steals it for self-keeping, and then tries to raise the morale of Dour Scotsman. He fails because he has no alcohol about his person, and also because he has a recorder. God help us. And this annoys the guards, and he manages to bluff his way out of jail with his bizarre German persona.
Again, continuing the theme, I think, of stupidity, though, how the characters get what they want because basically the writer wrote, "Oh, I need my characters to do a thing, so here's the other characters doing a thing to get them what they want." And it's not really any logic to it, is there?
There's a bit where Jamie's painted as a savage because he doesn't recognise that the Doctor's doing a play on things, and Ben has to say to him, "No, Jamie, you stupid savage from the past that is an idiot in this story. The Doctor's doing a thing." Now, this on its own is rubbish. However, in the Jamie's last story, The War Games, the exact same thing happens, but to a Mexican, and Jamie is the one saying, no, it's a ploy by the Doctor. Completely accidental.
Back to the pit, Polly blackmails Finch with her womanly wiles to help them get to Inverness in an atrocious manner. This sets up the theme of everybody has their price, corruption is rife. If you have money or goods or services, everybody wants something in order to do something else for somebody else.
She says, "You're fond of hanging," and she says that to the British Guard, and I thought, oh, Elwyn Jones, he wrote a book on the last two hangings in England. This must be a theme of his, but it turns out that Elwyn Jones, in fact, had basically no influence on this script, and it is 90% Jerry Davis. So take that. In your introduction, you said the godlike Jerry Davis. Well, I'm afraid this little misfire is his. And when I was speaking with Nick the other day about how in 1975,
Revenge of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He'd lost it. Well, it seems he never really had it.
We must stop referring to Jerry Davis as if he's some kind of 1970s car. I do love the metaphor. Oh well, love, I'm going to work. I'll just hop in my Jerry Davis. Oh no, wait a minute, it's not working again. Oh, what's I've got here? Oh, Revenge of the Cybermen Part 2. I'll walk.
Yeah.
That was terrible. I'm leaving it in.
But yeah, this isn't great. I mean, no wonder they got rid of the historicals after this one, to be honest.
And this was the first to be junked. 2 months later, they put it in the bin.
Wow.
No. Of all the ones to junk, I'm glad they got rid of this one and the smugglers.
2 months. Oh. Trask the pirate, for he acts like one, consults with Perkins and Gray, and they do their little malignant evil deeds and talking about how they're the villains. In which point one of them utters the quote of, "White slaves are better than black slaves," according to them.
That seemed all a bit... I mean, I suppose it's good that it's showing the authentic racism of the time, but could you really imagine that line working its way into a story now? Or, in fact, I find the whole idea a bit weird. The idea of having white slaves at the time. I can't imagine that would have been a thing that would have been done.
Terrible comedy. Right. The Doctor gets to see Solicitor Gray, wastes his time, and uses the Princess Standard to tempt him. Ultimately, he manages to overpower him in a silly way, bounds, gags him, and locks him in a cupboard. The Doctor then outwits dumb old Perkins with some medical buffoonery and physical battery, because comedy, persuading him to go to sleep, at which point the Doctor escapes from this bizarre scene.
Yeah, and at this point, I realised that bizarrely this episode in particular is meant to be like a farcical comedy, and I was thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's not funny, although it looks like it's trying, but at various points it's got some more unsavoury kind of undertones to it, you know?
Yeah, it's
the previous scene to this is literally, the white slaves will be so much better at the plantations and the black slaves, and it's like, that doesn't sit very well tonally with comedy.
But noteworthy is that rather than trying to do a comedy based around the murder of Scottish people, which can be done if you do it smart enough, it tries to do both at the same time. Even if we had the visuals to this, I don't see what they could be doing that would be that funny. I don't see it being that interesting. And it just ends up as people talking, saying boring things with the odd slapstick moment. And the two are just so polarised, whereas in the Romans they gelled.
Thus we get to the second half of this episode, a totally unappealing chase sequence. Finch is rescued by his inferiors and they start tracking down Polly and Kirsty. Trask discovers Perkins and Gray, and the latter two looking after the Doctor, who's wandering about, whilst Trask continues loading his prisoners to be sold as slaves. Said prisoners include Ben and Jamie and Colin, because why not? So they take the back passage out of Inverness jail, whilst the Doctor heads behind them, having dressed up in drag as a wench woman, because why not? And this long chase sequence happens in which Trask, Ben, Colin and Jamie escape and the Doctor fails to save them.
The only point I have on this bit is that it sounded like the maid, whose name was Molly, was singing the Star Trek theme at about 17 minutes in. She was going like da 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 dum 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 ba dum.
No.
It sounded a bit like the Star Trek theme to me.
I refuse to believe that. I didn't hear it, but I refuse to believe it. Nothing that good could be in this episode.
It wasn't the Star Trek theme, but I thought it had bits of it.
I guess something I have to comment for the whole episode is it does appear that the role of Jamie is gradually expanding from a mere extra in the previous serial to sort of, he doesn't appear anything special right now, but he's sort of like, he seems like the main and not Doctor and companion character in this, I'd say.
And we get to a cliffhanger, which is not a cliffhanger because the episode sort of stops. The Doctor selects his next terrible accent to tempt the sentry and make his way off to Trask's party. Said party has gone on a rowing boat and taken them to the good ship, well, terribly bad ship, Annabelle, where Trask, the pirate, because he is a pirate, he does so many things, terrible pirate stereotypes, he shows his authority to Ben and Jamie that they are doomed by tossing a dead body quite literally off a plank. Ooh-ah. And roll credits. Ugh.
If there's one thing we've noticed, don't bring pirates into Doctor Who, it never works. Except for in Doctor Who and the Pirates, the audio story, which is saved by Colin Baker singing and not necessarily by the pirates. No one wanted this overseas, and I can't blame them.
Well, no, quite literally. You literally just saw the tapes of episode 1. That's what the body was. It was Trask throwing them into the water. It's never going to get overseas. It's going to the bottom of the ocean, fellas. That's where the tapes from Fury from the Deep went. Into the deep.
Too soon, Ben. Too soon.
And do you know what the Americans left on the moon? Episodes 1 through 3 and 6 of the Space Pirates.
You know that Ian Levine or Philip Morris, they're so obsessed with finding the old tapes that they will probably launch an expedition to the moon just to check under the flag now.
Yeah.
Let's just stop looking for the Space Pirates.
Who said we were?
That's good. That's comforting.
Of all the serials to look for, come on.
Imagine Philip Morris's disdain when he does find it, and it is the space
this one. Why would we find Fury from the Deep or Evil of the Daleks? No, I get bloody Space Pirates.
Has someone checked behind the sofa?
Yeah, we got nothing about this episode, folks.
We ran out.
We ran out 5 minutes ago. It is abhorrent. It is literally filling 25 minutes. What Terrence Dicks did, only to a much better degree in the War Games, because they were able to use Patrick Troughton's powers to the fullest. In a story that was actually mildly entertaining.
Mildly entertaining. It is beautiful.
Yeah, okay. I do like to understate things. We must look at these episodes from 50 years ago and compare them to now.
Oh, we didn't do that. This sucks nowadays. It would have sucked then too. There's a comparison.
There you go. Sure. Bless it. I don't think it would have gotten off the drawing board.
No.
No. There you go. So, yes, that is the Highlanders episode 2. Thank you very much for watching. You can find us on Blogspot, which redirects to iTunes, where you can comment and rate us and tell us if you hate the Highlanders too. That would be very nice. We're also on Facebook and YouTube, where you can like, comment and subscribe, and other internety things, including Google Plus if you dare. Tell us where various missing episodes are hidden. That would be hilarious. No, it wouldn't. Anyway,
and if you do like the Highlanders Part 2,
tell us
we are
why.
very, very interested in why.
Yeah,
we'd love to know.
Yeah, we're not so different that we differ from your point of view. Yes.
Possibly.
Whatever happens, whatever your opinion, we shall be back next week to Braveheart, the episode 3 of the Highlanders. Until then, I've been Ben.
I've been Luke.
And I've been Nick.
Thank you, and goodbye.